Welcome back to the Iron Insight. Thank you for starting your week off right with the Iron Insight every Monday morning at 4 a.m. I'm Bryn Welds.
And I'm Andrew Nichols with Southern Leatherworks.
And today we're sitting down for a part two with Mr. Codie Aljets from Sage Country Customs. How's it going?
Good. How are you guys this morning? Appreciate you having me.
Doing great.
Pretty good.
Yeah, we're doing great.
So we just saw you, what was that, last week, but
2 weeks ago now, I think.
2 weeks ago? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got to catch up with you at FabTech again. And if you haven't listened to the part one episode of Codie's, probably about a year ago, maybe even a little bit over, I suggest you go back and listen to that. But since then, you've exploded in everything from the size of your artwork to the quality. So kind of give us a rundown on what you've been doing in this past year that's made you progress so quickly.
I don't know. It's kind of funny in the perception, you know what I mean? Like I said in the last one, I'm always trying to grow with every project that I do. And then whether that in size or in technical skill, I've really been pushing myself to jump into new materials, the bronzes, the coppers, and the stainless. And I think you've seen that, especially in the last 3 or 4 art pieces that I've done. And it's really just kind of opened people's eyes to what I'm able to do. And I still say it a lot, but I still feel like I'm just getting started. Just actually starting to get the opportunities that people are paying me to make the work, so I can go that much farther with some of these pieces, just knowing that they're paid. This project I'm doing now with the mules, I go so much farther beyond what the real value or what my commission is, just because it's guaranteed dollars. You saw the headdress, and that's stuff that I've made in the past, and some of that still sits here. So I can take a bigger risk when I do have a commission. And, I've started opening those doors by just hustling,
Yeah. And so you do your own installs most of the time or all the time too?
I try to avoid the installs. These houses sometimes are getting to be kind of big dollar homes, and the insurance for that gets a little crazy. So I usually try to have them hire somebody, a contractor that built the house, or like the one I'm about to go do, a ranch manager is going to be there to actually do the work. But I do go personally help them install it. And it's a strategic play, to be honest with you. If I ship the stuff, I don't get another face-to-face opportunity to talk to the client. I think it kind of gives a white glove type of service, and the level of stuff I'm getting into, I really want to have that experience with them. So I do go and assist them if I can. And really that's just to have that conversation about the next commission, to be honest. I do love to see their reaction, which is pretty cool, because sometimes you don't get to see the reaction of the people when you spend hundreds of hours on something. And it's kind of like a wah-wah moment. But it's cool to go and to be able to show them and see that reaction. And once again, it's more just a play of hey, if you're happy with this one, I'd love to talk to you about the next one when you're ready. Sometimes that's all that it takes to open that door for the next piece.
Yeah. And the install on the guitar seemed pretty tricky, because that was like a sandstone wall, wasn't it?
Yeah, that one was definitely a weird one. It was a sandstone block, but it was like a veneer, which was so damn scary. I think it was maybe 2 inches thick, and then it was wood behind it. Once again, we knew we had extra blocks if we had to replace a block, but I'm not a mason. So I had the contractor come in, and we even got pictures from when the house was built years ago to kind of know where the blocking was behind the sandstone. And yeah, I mean, I had to kind of polish the surface, so I had a flat surface, because it was like a cold chiseled surface on the block. And so yeah, it was definitely tricky to get it, especially with the neck vertically and everything to stay parallel with the wall and look visually right, just basically because the wall wasn't flat. Not at all. There's 2-inch variations in certain spots. So it was definitely tricky, but it looked really rad on that wall, and the sandstone really made that thing pop.
Yeah. What was do you know the weight on that? Because the photos of you standing next to it, that thing's fucking way bigger than a regular guitar.
Yeah, it's about 6 foot total. But yeah, no, it's probably, I consider all that when I'm making stuff. I bet it was 60 pounds, maybe, not super heavy. And the way I've learned now on that one, as well. And the same, I'm using kind of the same technique now as when I'm building these pieces, I'm putting like an internal frame and internal structure for my mounting system. So even the guitar, I use like 3/4 ID pipe, and then I use 3/4 OD, round stock bar. And so I could have like a sleeve, and that way the mount on the wall was flush with the tabs of the bars, and we could mount all that without having to deal with the guitar and the weight of the guitar. And then I slide it right on, and then I have a set screw that I tap into there to where it's kind of a pro mount, and then everything's hidden. And I'm doing the same thing now, even this big picture frame on the top row. I did the same ID or OD tube, and then put the mount on the wall, and we'll lift the mules up and slide it right on with two of us, and then one set screw in the center. Just kind of figuring out some of those things to make it easy, so it's not cumbersome with like big heavy art, and the same. That's just kind of the stuff I think that's cool when the clients see you taking the extra step on the mounting process and the thought process beyond that, beyond just like the art piece. I'm trying to consider their total visual area, and especially the guitar, you walk to buy it from the second floor, so you did get like a profile visual of it, and I wanted that to be perfect and clean. So it's been kind of a cool progression to figure out some of those ways to mount and have a system to do it.
And I remember, I think you told me that it was some sort of charity or auction deal with the guitar, or maybe just like a gallery show where you could walk through, is that you were going to go up and give like a 10-minute speech, and then you got held back on stage because somebody was going up in front of you. Can you tell the people listening who that was?
Yeah, that was actually the Heart. I do those cancer auctions every year for the organization that helped me out. And this year, freaking George Strait showed up, a room of like 400 people. Yeah, it's getting ready to go up and do my spiel, and then they pushed it back, and here's old George Strait standing there ready to go sing a couple songs. So it was kind of a tough act to follow, that's for sure. Interesting with the auction because everybody was all wound up from this surprise, and once again it was a room of 400 people in a small town in the middle of Colorado. So they bring in some really rad Nashville songwriters anyway, but that was just a whole different level, so it was cool. But I didn't get to meet him, which was kind of, in my mind, it was kind of bullshit, to be honest. I should have been able to get a picture with him,
Yeah.
But it was cool. I'm actually kind of the same on like the strategic play side of things. That door was open. So I asked the organization I make George a thank you gift, something small for his shelf or, something like that, desktop type deals. I won't get paid for it, but I think things like that are worth it because if I can have something sitting on his desk or on a shelf, and he walks by it, he might just think, oh, that was really cool, that guy, and, I want a piece from him. Yeah. And I'll send my branding packet. Now I have like a packet that I send with all my work that, gives more information about what I'm doing and so on. So those are kind of those little opportunities that I'm taking to make that leap that I've made in the past year, and sometimes it's just that investment back into your own business. And Andrew, I'm sure you can understand that, like sometimes there's takes money to make money, and that's super scary, but it is just the reality of it. And sometimes
sometimes you gotta send something small free, like you said, get it on his desk, get it in his hands. I send out free, lenses all the time, or extra goodies, or just freebies in general. People appreciate that. So it keeps you in front of them, keeps you in their mind.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just about to say. If you're not in front of them, they're not thinking about you. And that's kind of a hard thing because like the social media aspect, I don't attract my clients. I attract welders and other makers, which is kind of interesting because other people that do almost very similar stuff attract artists and so on, and they don't have like the welder following. So, we all kind of have our own paths, and, it's just interesting, what you can do or how many paths you're willing to choose and take, at the same time too. I mean, I work harder doing this and more hours doing this than I probably have the majority of my jobs. The difference is I just love the hell out of it. So it's not really, you were texting me last night at 2 or 3 in the morning and I was still in my shop. I didn't have one beer or didn't go to the bar or do anything like that. I just literally wanted to hang out on Friday night in my shop and keep working,
I was doing the same thing last night. I was there till probably 1, just packing orders and making hoods. And that's where I'd rather be any day of the week, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
In the shop.
it's a good problem to have, right? I mean,
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
it's kind of double-edged because you lose some of that family time, and even some of my friends haven't seen me, or I haven't been dirt biking or doing some of that stuff as much as I used to. And I will, but there's a time to put your head down and, I've got a little momentum. You guys are noticing it. And especially in the artist realm, like you got to take that momentum and just run and run and run. And it's super hard to even keep it when you have it. Art's just a necessity. It's not a necessity. It's a luxury. So, not everybody's looking to go buy a real expensive set of custom mules,
And not only have you progressed, like you were just saying, in your branding, like with a branding packet, I never would have even really thought of that. But also, like, comparing your Fab Tech last year to where you're in your flip flops walking around with a Longhorn sculpture showing everybody, to where you had 3 pieces on display this year?
I did. I had 3 opportunities this year. Yeah, I mean, and the same. That was, I will say that I believe that was a created opportunity by taking that risk last year. And I also think it didn't just benefit me. I mean, I think, I had people call me or message me all year like, hey, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? And, the answer was I just did it and they didn't stop me. And you saw how many people were there walking around, or artists and welders were walking around with art pieces. And we had booth opportunities with our art as a group and things like that were, I think some of the social media aspect is changing how Fab Tech is perceived, and I think they'll kind of change how they're dealing with it as well. So yeah, I was at Thorny, Edge, and Uniweld this year, which was amazing opportunities. It's crazy, like you said, to go from kind of pirating an event to being in 3 booths. Now I just got to figure out how to like monetize all that better and figure out that side of the game so that I am making money while I'm gone more than I got this year, and not hustle when I get back to like, oh crap, I just spent a lot of money in Chicago. I missed. We took an extended trip, so it was like 10 days, that I wasn't at the shop. But it was cool. I mean, it was super rad this year. There's so much support there, and I had my family with me, which was awesome. And last year I walked around there all day, and a couple people knew who I was. Had a couple conversations, but for the most part, kind of walked around silent all day, just looking at stuff. And this year I couldn't make it 10 feet, which was crazy to me. Because I don't really have a lot of followers, as you guys see. I do like the followers I do have. I try to communicate with them. I try to keep up with everybody, and that's hard. But absolutely, I try to make it a community thing of sharing and knowledge and all that stuff, the mindset. Brand, we've talked about getting married and things like that, and the change of living with people or with somebody after you get married. And so that's where I think I gain the value in the back end, is just being myself and not really trying to, I'm not trying to be a persona online or famous online. I just want to sell art.
You just reminded me, you knew when I was going to propose, and you told me that it was going to be, I thought that asking for her parents' blessings was going to be the hard part. And you told me you're going to be shitting bricks when it's time to drop on that knee. And I was like, nah, you're wrong. This is going to be easy. It was fucking tough.
Yeah, I remember texting you the next day and asking you how it went, and you had said the same thing, that it was definitely a different scenario when the time came, and it is.
Yeah, she thought she thought we were on like a balcony at this Airbnb on St. Thomas, the island, like right over probably a good 60-foot cliff, and she thought I was nervous from the heights or that I was about to have a seizure, because I had a seizure previously from like not long before that, and she thought I was going to start seizing because I was shaking so damn bad. I was scared I was going to drop the ring off the cliff.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, but that's the cool stuff that, I didn't do social for, I think I was even making art for like almost 2 years before I even posted a picture of anything. And I kind of didn't do it because I was scared of the trolls, or you hear some of the horror stories. And honestly, I found like an amazing community. And, we saw that at FabTech, how tight the community is and how really just supportive everybody is of each other. And we can't support each other all financially, but we can support each other by this kind of stuff and sharing each other's stuff, and even just the knowledge trade. I don't see anybody in this realm that I've met that is trying to backstop anybody from growing or learning something new. It is just a full open door of knowledge if you're willing to have those conversations or just ask. That was a lot of conversations at FabTech. People are like, oh, I really want to like message you and ask, but I don't want to bother you. And I'm like, just message me. Like, I might not respond right away, but if we're all growing, we're all doing better. And if say like like a Clint Lesh, you met him at FabTech, like, if he's having metal art at Burning Man, it's opening the eyes for metal art everywhere. Or, just different opportunities like that. Like you said, it might not be us that they're seeing, but if they're seeing metal art, you're still in front of them. And those people might not be in that artist area, but if you're out doing your work, you should pop up in their mind of like, oh, well, maybe Codie can make that. I'm not in Clint's area or in Bryn's area. You know what I mean?
And I think that's one thing about FabTech that's probably been the most beneficial for me personally, is like meeting new people, the connections that we've made. Because I wouldn't have met you, and then you introduced us to Clinton, and that's like it's crazy how he's kind of snuck up on the game. Like, nobody really there was that familiar with him until you kind of brought him around and introduced him to people.
Well, that's what's crazy. He's got like a couple 100,000 followers, I think. But that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I guess I originally, on the social side of things, I was really trying to get like a peer, not recognition, but just recognize that I was doing quality work beyond like the, technically doing quality stuff. And I think that's how I've kind of grown in this community. And it honestly, it blew my mind that nobody knew Clint, because I've known him, and we've communicated forever, but we had just met like a month before here in Colorado. He brought his mammoth down, and I drove like 5 hours just to go shake hands, and I wanted to see the mammoth because that's the scale of stuff that I want to get to. And just to go see it in person and be able to visualize how it was constructed right away makes me, in my mind, think like, okay, if I can get the opportunity, then I can do something of that level as well, in my own way, right? So that's why we had an extra room in the condo since I brought my family, and I just told Clint, I'm like, hey man, if you're feeling up to it after Burning Man, come, and I think it'd be worth your networking. And just trying to help him on that side of things, and he, dealing with some manufacturers, and kind of same thing you did with me, Brent, of just the introduction to the manufacturer and who he is, and then let him run with it, and he did. And, he was only there a couple days, and he made some good connections with you guys and a lot of other makers and welders, but then he also made some good connections with some manufacturers, and hopefully he can capitalize on that here, in the future to, and for us, that helps us grow our shops and our equipment, and be able to take those stepping stones to some of that equipment that like I can't afford, like the flag I just did is 4 foot by 5 foot. And I used to use a little 18-inch bead roller, and Bailey had sent me a 36-inch one, and I already maxed it out. I can't go any bigger than that for that bead roller, and I even had to like flip the dies so that I could finish the other side. But, it's those kind of cool things that, that I'm getting those opportunities. And the same for people, these companies are not hunting me down. They are not, at 2,500 followers, they're telling me, hey, we usually don't do this or give these sort of opportunities to people that are under 10,000 followers. Now, that being said, on the back end of my social, I've got so much engagement. My account looks like I've got 200,000 to 300,000 followers because I've just constantly got back end engagement. So that's a value of itself. And then I also believe that I've got solid quality followers that they can look through that list. And yeah, it's not a long list, but when you look at it, you're like, whoa, like there's a lot of heavy hitters in the market. There's a lot of corporations that are following me just to see how I'm going to keep progressing, how I'm putting myself out there consistently. I think those companies constantly look to see how you represent yourself because that reflects on them. And I think all that kind of ties into having those opportunities, but I'm creating them by emailing them or calling them or however I can get a hold of them, and, and taking 100 no's for every one yes. But you just got to accept that and keep pushing forward. And once again, that's allowing me to scale in some of these bigger pieces and do some of these cooler new techniques that I've had in my mind. I just haven't had the equipment to do it.
And I think I hate to go back to FabTech, but getting your artwork in front of them, with how approachable you are and your work kind of speaks for itself. So once you get in front of them, there's almost no reason they wouldn't, because if you think about the headdress, for example, that quality of work
oh my gosh,
with the equipment
nuts.
that you had at the time, that's pretty fucking impressive. So imagine what you could do if you weren't limited on equipment, space, all that.
Yeah, I mean, the headdress was basically like hand shears, a wooden block, a nylon, teardrop mallet from Harbor Freight, and a couple hammerheads that I bought and shaped them into different shapes. But beyond that and a MIG welder. Beyond that was some of the most basic tools that I could use. But you can learn so much with those basic tools because you have to truly use the techniques to manipulate and shrink and stretch. You can't use the mechanical advantage, especially in those smaller, tight, intricate areas. It's been a hell of a learning process. But I also, last year I went and took a class with Bailey. I drove to Utah and invested in taking a class there. Shape with the equipment, and then I even went and took another class with Christian Sosa in Vegas and slept in his dirt bag. I literally slept on an air mattress in his motorcycle shop for 4 days to make it cheap enough that I can afford to go, and just learned, nonstop. And then now even same, on the guitar, I was having some issues getting it to lay flat because the front of it's all formed and shaped like a body panel, and I couldn't get it. So I text Christian and said, hey man, I'm really struggling with this. And 10 minutes later, he sent me a little video back and a little picture that he drew of how to shape and how to go about it, where I needed to relieve the stress in the material. And I did it and it worked perfect. So those are all those interactions, and the help from, Christian Sosa is world renowned. He only builds 2 motorcycles a year, and that's all he has to do. So to have that kind of knowledge in your back pocket is, that stuff's priceless, and I think that once again, I just being honest and being myself and showing that I'm really trying to push and grow is what's, those people respect that. And even though they're perceived at this crazy high level, they were at that hustle at one point too. So they're trying to pay it forward. Kevin Stone and Michelle, same, I call them and ask them certain questions about stuff, and whether it's business or growth or, learning curves, all this knowledge that you could get from each other can help you grow in your realm, even though we're all doing stuff a little bit different.
Right. Last time you were on the show, I remember you telling us that you were going to go do that Bailey workshop down in Utah. What was that like?
It was actually super cool. They bring in every piece of equipment that they have, the power hammers, the shrinkers, the stretchers, the bead rollers, the English wheels. Bailey has a whole lot of metal stuff. And then they brought 7 instructors, but primarily that stuff's all based around custom cars and car fabrication. But it all, at least to me, it translates. I can translate that manipulation to my work. And the same, I've got these goals to grow size-wise, and to grow size, I need to go a thicker material. And I just, I got to think longevity. So I don't want to like destroy my hands hammering all day on 16 gauge. I'd rather do it with a power hammer or, you know, some other mechanical advantage. But, you know, until you try the stuff, I don't want to spend 30 grand on a power hammer that I don't know how to freaking use. You know, you can put all the best tools in front of somebody, but unless you technically know how to use the stuff, it's all worthless, right? So, you know, when I do those things, I'm hunting knowledge, but it's the same. I was very much hunting like, you know, connections and interpersonal connections for that. You know, Bobby Walden is like, you know, he invented some of the machines we make that we use today for metal shaping and wrote books about it. And all these things, Chris Rush and all these guys that have been doing this stuff since the 70s, and what we do today is based around what they invented. And I'm standing in a classroom or in a shop learning from these guys for 2 days. And then the same, you know, now you got that interpersonal, you can message them, and, you know, I don't have their cell number or whatever, but you can message them through social media, and you've got this knowledge that, once again, you can't learn it without doing it or having some sort of mentorship, and people are willing to help you. You know, I definitely suggest anybody doing anything, take a class. You know, I'm going to start teaching some classes for basic shaping. I'm going to start going to some colleges to teach some sculpture stuff. And that was kind of my networking this year at FabTech, was with like the AWS, FabTech itself, and like instructors and students, because I want to go to these schools and have these opportunities to get in front of people's faces. And the same, it's a give back play. I like to give back, and that gives me the fulfillment that I kind of lost without being a firefighter. But then I also am showing the next generation, or it could be older generation, a new skill that, you know, lets them clear their head or create a business, or, you know, whatever the path they choose. But, you know, I'm opening that gateway for them, and that's a pretty cool thing to see and witness when people do make something and they surprise themselves. You know, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how like your former career as a firefighter sometimes comes into play in this current industry. Like I don't even know, 2 days ago maybe I text you and you called me right away asking about my wife. Once she keeps sending me these videos of all the pumpkin carved out of a gas tank, and so I'm like, all right, this was in the shop when I bought the house, so I'm gonna go cut a pumpkin face into this tank. I have no idea what gas this is. Should I fill this with water? Who's done this before? Oh, Codie did like 30 last year. I'm gonna text him real fast. And then you called me and you were telling me about the fumes and the gas and how you really don't even need to put water in there and all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it actually does quite a bit play into it on that side of stuff, and the safety of it, you know, and just really the dexterity of it all too. I mean, even the extrication side of it and the cutting the cars and all that was all manipulating metal just in the reverse end. I was trying to take it all apart versus putting it together, but you still had to understand like the structure and where the metal was going to stress, and so, you know, so on and so on. And, you know, it is kind of funny. I've done so many damn careers and jobs my whole life. Like if I get bored, I just did something else. And it really is a lot of those little jobs and other lives that I live that have kind of came together now. Even like the dealing with the fees and the edge and all that. You know, I used to be a sales manager in my 20s for Norton Abrasives. So, you know, even though that was a 20 something years ago, I still understand how that industry works from the back end. So that gives me a little bit of insight on how to approach them, how to look marketable to them, and really just show them how I can be of value to them without having the follower count and so on, you know. And like you said before, I really, and I'm glad, but the quality of my work is really speaking for itself now, and it's starting to get recognized as quality work, and I'm consistently putting out high quality stuff, and I think people have been able to see my progression in a short time. So I think some of the companies are also jumping on a little early, knowing that, you know, it's a long-term play, and I'll be more valuable in that game later to them as a marketing aspect or so on. And it's all just weird too, because once again, my goal is to sell art, not to sell welders or cups or, any of that. But it's free marketing, beyond my time and effort. So, I think in the end, it's all worth throwing it out there, casting a net, I guess I'll say. And, just hoping that you're on the school of fish at one point,
Right.
Absolutely.
What did you think about the artist meetup at FabTech in the Edge Everlast booth this year?
I think it was awesome. It was super sweet that Edge and Everlast had opened all that up for everybody each day. And I didn't get to see some of the other talks, unfortunately, because I was committed this year. And that was kind of the crappy thing. I wasn't able to walk around as much, which is, once again, a good problem. But it was awesome. I wish, you kind of get wrapped up in a couple conversations and then you see 10 other people you want to have the conversation with, and then, time's up or you got to move on to your next, thing that you got to go to. But, all the artists there were super cool. We had, there was people there doing mega huge stuff and there's people there doing reclaimed, really tiny, I think there was like a wire stick figure on the table at on one point.
That was our buddy. It was great. He's like, I contributed, and I was like, what do you mean? And then he held that.
So a lot of people picked it up and looked at it.
It was great. I thought it was great. I was like, that's awesome.
I was wondering who did that.
Well, and I think some of that stuff is really that's how easy you can start making sculptures, right? Like that, he grabbed some wire, or it was probably TIG rod or something, and just made a little stick figure by twisting it and bending it, and we all knew what it was. It was a little person sitting on the table, and you can just build from there if you want, or if that's what you enjoy doing, just do that. Like there's nobody forcing me to go deeper, to learn more stuff. I just know myself that I really like just constantly getting new skills. And now it's just, even last night, I'm having these like aha moments of like, holy shit, like, dude, you just made a fucking mule that looks just like the picture of the mule you were sent. You know what I mean? And when I take these commissions on, I tell the clients, I'm like, I have no clue how I'm going to make this, but I think I can make it. So it's not I guess I'm not selling it the greatest sometimes, but I show them these real crappy chicken scratch drawings I do, like even of like the headdress. I get my idea out real rudimentary, and I don't spend a lot of time drawing details, because in the reality, when I'm making stuff, it constantly changes, or I don't have the skill to do what I want to do or the tool to do what I want to do. And you pivot and make whatever you have work, right? And sometimes that pivot turns out 100 times cooler than if you would have made it the way you kind of thought you would have made it. And then now you got like a new skill or a new technique. And that's really been the craziest, coolest thing for me on all that.
Right. Well, we appreciate you coming on for a part 2, because I know we're gonna have to do a part 3 here in about a year or so.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Yeah. Just seeing your progress has been like truly incredible in the quality of your work, your networking, and now the opportunities that you've rightfully earned has been pretty fucking cool to watch. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming on. All the listeners, all Codie's links and social medias will be in the show notes. And for me, the Everlast and Edge link in the show notes as well. And Andrew?
And if you're looking for custom welding hoods or other leather goods that relate to the welding industry, you can check out southernleatherworks.net. The link will be in our bio, and so will my Everlast link. Go check them out. Mr. Codie, it was once again a blessing to be able to hang out with you at FabTech. Had an absolute blast. It's really cool to see you grow and to see some of your artwork, more artwork in person. So we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us about it.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. If anybody's got any questions or wants to try something, reach out. I definitely try to always answer people's questions and help each other grow. So I appreciate y'all's support. I appreciate everybody's listening support. Like, it's been an amazing journey. It makes me feel awesome that I can help inspire people and also get the support back from you guys like this on these platforms. So I thank you all so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cody.
And don't forget, to every listener, to leave us a review on the listening platform that you're on right now. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.